Welcome to this week's edition of the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. I'm Kevin Jeter, and to my right is Vincent Charles, and of course, Afshin Banab and Chris Jerry. We're going to talk about what we enjoy talking about the best and the most, and that is local and national sports. Let's get started, gentlemen, talking about PSU, Penn State University, 60 million hard reasons slammed by the NCAA. First, we're going to start with Chris Jerry. Get your thoughts, Chris.
It surprised me because I didn't think they would get any kind of penalty like they got hit with. Afshin, what did you think?
Yeah, they really took it. I think that they now wish for the death penalty. Instead, they got a lot worse than that, if there's such a thing.
And Vincent, we were kind of expecting this, sitting around this table. We kind of knew that this was coming to Penn State, but did you expect something to happen of this magnitude?
It definitely surprised me. I thought the death penalty would have been greater magnitude, but the scholarship losses are definitely going to hurt them.
All right, let's go over what's going to happen to Penn State. A $60 million fine against Penn State that took place today, of course. 14 seasons of football victories are going to be taken away from Joe Paterno, the late Joe Paterno, that starts from 1988 into 2011. What does this do to Joe Pa's legacy?
Well, it pretty much kills it. I mean, really, he was the all-time winningest coach in major college football. And now by taking that away, Bobby Bowden's now on top. But I think that was a message that Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, wanted to send, which was we don't want Paterno recognized in any kind of way because, quite frankly, having that many wins in major college football, no one would have ever passed that the way things are now. No one ever would coach major college football for 60 years like he did.
Right. And we thought that the beginning of it was with when they took away the Joe Pa statue, but that pales in comparison as to what they're going to go through now and what they are going through now.
That was just the beginning, and you can really say that this is one of the biggest falls from grace in sports history.
And it's one of those unfortunate things, Vincent.
My question is exactly why they did that, because I think you're hurting a lot of players, who participated in those wins, in those victories.
Well, I think it's an unfortunate thing that happened, but someone has to pay. Just as the NCAA holds players to a higher standard, well, they should hold the people, the adults that are in charge to a higher standard as well. Now, the question would be, do any of us agree with the levy that has been imposed by the NCAA? $60 million. If you had your druthers, Chris, what would you have done?
I kind of agree with everything the NCAA did, except the $60 million. And the reason I have a problem with the $60 million, Kevin, is the way they did it. They said, okay, Penn State, you're going to pay $60 million, which is going to be distributed to organizations around the country for child abuse. To me, the issues happen in Pennsylvania around Penn State, and I think if they were going to tell them to pay $60 million, that money should have been distributed around Pennsylvania and not necessarily around the country.
I agree with that. The one thing I didn't like was that Emmert, when he made his speech about Penn State and the violations, is that he did not talk about the guys that really affected what happened at Penn State, and that's Graham Spanier, the Vice President Schultz, all the way down to even Joe Paterno. Those guys didn't take the blame in anything, according to Emmert, when I listened to his speech. Now, I know that there are investigations ongoing, but they should have at least been called out.
Now, you talk in terms of the litigants who actually are suing Penn State. That's not part of the $60 million. So when it's all said and done, we're talking millions and millions of dollars.
Well, we're talking not only the $60 million, but the Big Ten has imposed a fine on Penn State as well. No Big Ten championships. They get $13 million a year over the next 5 years is what they would get via revenue, and that's not going to be for them, too. They're going to have to take that and spread that somewhere else.
I love when he steals my thunder. I have my notes right here, and I think he's actually looking at my notes, but that
I'm sorry.
All right, Chris.
No, I kind of agree with what Afshin says, except when you say, Afshin, about the fact that these other guys weren't mentioned, I really do think it was a legal issue there because we do know he mentioned Sandusky, and Sandusky's already had his trial, but the other guys have not had a trial. So imagine this. Imagine you say something like that in your NCAA report and call those people out, and they somehow get found not culpable or not guilty. They can then turn around and sue you for defamation.
They could, but I mean, I think there should be a mention in there that the president of Penn State University, and everyone knows this, and he even admitted, knowing that what was going on, that he should have been in that it was in the Louis Freeh framework of the if Emmert was going to go along the Louis Freeh framework of what happened at Penn State, Spanier was mentioned in there. So I don't know why Emmert couldn't have mentioned him either, because this was the president of one of the most prestigious universities in the country.
Right.
That's what I think.
So, Vincent, we look at this, the long-term implications in regards to Penn State. Clearly, the message in which the NCAA is sending out to other schools is that, hey, this will not be tolerated. This will not be accepted.
Definitely something that these big universities have to take a look at. But one thing about it is it's going to affect Penn State for years to come, for years afterwards. Now, these penalties, 4 or 5 years, it's going to affect recruiting. It's going to hurt people that maybe were interested in Penn State coming to that school. And it's going to take a while for Penn State to recover. I think they will recover, but it's going to take at least 4 or 5 years. Remember, Penn State is, I think when I last checked, they were like the 3rd biggest school that has the most lucrative program. So they will definitely return, but it's going to take a little while.
All right, I'm looking at Afshin from the corner of my eyes, and I'm thinking that 4 years, that's not going to really do it. I mean, it's going to take a while because a lot's going to be happening within the span of 4 years. It may take how long?
Right. I think actually over the next year or two, we might not see the effects of what's happening now with the decisions based today. We could see maybe, Chris, a decade of futility, if you will, for Penn State University, maybe even more until they can actually rebound from this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see the effects this year because even though they've allowed the players to immediately transfer, at the end of the day, most schools around the country already have their fill of players. So they're not going to drop somebody to take a Penn State player.
This is correct.
So I think this year's Penn State team will be as good as you'll see it for a while. But as they start getting the scholarship reductions over the next 4 years, that's when I think you're really going to see Penn State fall down.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing about this is the students, the student athletes suffer. I mean, no matter how you slice it, at the end of the day, it is the student athletes that really take the brunt of this. I mean, the NCAA sets rules for student athletes to follow. It actually sets a higher precedent for the people that run the team should follow. And it's an unfortunate thing that this was allowed to happen so many years. And when you get that, it's just so, it just completely, you know, it's full of debauchery and it just completely floors me.
I agree, Kevin. And this goes back to one of those things about collective punishment, the acts of a few that punish thousands and thousands of people at Happy Valley. And they were criminal acts. There's no doubt about it. It was just unfortunate what happened.
That's the sad thing about that. Unfortunately, the student athletes will suffer throughout this debacle. We wish Penn State the best of luck. In my humble opinion, Penn State's still a good school. Let's not take away the fact that they still produce a ton of engineers and a ton of great scientists, in which I happen to work with every day in my regular job at the National Institutes of Health. Let's move on to the Washington Nationals. Good news. They are 3.5 games atop of the National League East. They are 55-39. They are doing it. Although some of us at this table may think that the last couple of games may have not been up to par. Talking particularly about you, Chris Jerry.
Well, I just felt that. I thought, I think it was a good way they bounced back, but I thought when they lost that 9-0 lead in that game, I thought that was going to be a turning point. Unfortunately, the Nationals won the last 2 of that 4-game series, but they came back, and that's the most important thing. They got themselves on track, but that was a little worrying, that 9-0 blown lead.
Well, in particular, you had issue of which and how Davy Johnson used Strasburg.
Well, I'm going to be, like what they would call in football Monday morning quarterback. I guess in this case I would be like Saturday night second guesser, but or Saturday morning second guesser. But my issue was if you have Steven Strasburg on an innings count, and it's raining, you had him out there in the 5th inning pitching in the rain. Then you bring him back out for the 6th inning when it's raining. You have nobody warming him up in the bullpen. He was already over 90. It's like, why? At that point, I would have had somebody up in the bullpen and brought them in. As it turned out, Strasburg came out in the 6th in the rain. First 3 hitters, boom, boom, boom. Got on base with base hits. Then Davey finally gets somebody up. Now Strasburg's around 100 pitches. Somebody should have been up early. But those are the kind of things that happens in the season. But who would have ever thought that a 9-0 lead would have been blown with Steven Strasburg on the mound?
Wow. Well, and the good thing about this year's Nationals is that they were able to come back within the next 2 games. You got to love the moxie. That's the difference for this year's Nationals as opposed to last year. Afshin.
Yeah, last year they would have never come back. This would have never happened. And the year before that, of course, the same as well. But They came into Game 3 and Game 4. John Landon, they called him from Syracuse, and he did a fine job in that, picking up that victory. And then, of course, the fourth game of the series they won with good fashion there. So
That's right.
they split the series.
That's right. Good show.
Yeah.
This team showing the depth that it has, and they're a resilient team. A sign of a good team is you can come back from that adversity, that 9-0 game. One thing about Strasburg, I think lately what's been hurting him is I think getting adapted to the weather here in Washington. You know, the very humid days, and I think that has had an effect on Strasburg's performance.
Well, you sure it wasn't an ointment that Davey Johnson outed him out
At
the beginning of the year?
Yeah.
Could have been that slick ointment, but you never know. I mean, but you got to love the way in which Strasburg is playing. Now we talk about some happenings. Just in, Ian Desmond placed on designated, DL. He's on the DL list now, and what that means is Corey Brown from AAA, Syracuse outfielder, is coming up to play. I mean, that means so many things, because at the beginning that we talked about this during episode 108 of the Nation's Capital Sports Show, which you can listen to on the award-winning Stitcher Radio Network. Sorry for that shameless plug, but nonetheless, I digress. We talked about that. And now what you have is you don't have an all-star. This could potentially open, the floodgates for someone else to come in and step in. Afshin.
Absolutely, it could. You don't know what's going to happen right now with Davey Johnson and general manager Mike Rizzo, but Ian Desmond is now on the DL. Corey Brown comes in. They do need a center fielder. What they've basically done is taken Danny Espinoza, put him at his natural position, which is shortstop, and then they've taken Steve Lombardozzi, the rookie, and they put him at second base. And they're going to look right now over the next week or two, Vincent, I'm sorry to say this, to see if this is a good combination, because I think Ian Desmond could be on the trading block by July 31st.
All right, so he's wow, trade bait. Oh man, I mean, you got to come back with that. You can accept that, man. Sitting down. I mean, what you got to say?
I
Vincent?
can't convince Avsheen that Ian Desmond is here to stay. I don't agree with your point of maybe putting him up for trade bait. Look, if it is working, you don't need to fix it. Right now, sure, there are a few things like the center field position that are question marks, but overall the depth and the chemistry is here in this team. It's working so far, so I don't think you upset that, especially Desmond. The guy's an all-star.
I think he's having a good year. I think last year he had a pretty bad year, as a matter of fact, but I know he's early on in his career. This year he's had a decent year. I question what happened when he had that oblique, by the way, and he all of a sudden came back just before the All-Star game to play, and now he's out again. So either he's hurt or he's not hurt. I don't know what the story is. I just think that Espinoza could be a great shortstop for this team.
And I would say to Vincent, you can't convince me either. and the reason why, as much as I like what Ian has done this year, the fact is, before the season started, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about the fact that the Nationals might want Espinoza to be their shortstop of the future. And they might want Lombardozzi, who was at the minors at the time, to be their second baseman. This time, with Ian Desmond on the disabled list, may be the time to find out if Espinoza can be the shortstop or not. And Ian Desmond, by having the year he's had, could bring you some pretty good players.
But remember, Espinoza, he couldn't hit the side of the barn for the first 2-3 months of the season. He's just beginning to hit now.
What's that song, What Have You Done For Me Lately?
Right,
What has he been doing lately?
All right.
And
Yeah,
Vincent,
but what
that
has
won't change the
Desmond been
chemistry
doing
of the
lately?
team. Vincent, that won't change the chemistry of the team. If they do trade Desmond, and they could get someone like a B.J. Upton, I think that would actually make them better.
All right, let's talk about Chris's favorite player, and I'm being facetious here. Let's talk about Henry I almost blow a game, Rodriguez. I mean, why does Davey Johnson believe so much in him when we see night after night when he completely goes in and discombobulates a game and just completely implodes? Chris?
Well, as I call Henry, the gas can. I mean, I just think that at the end of the day, I don't think now Davey even has confidence in him. But unfortunately, he has no more options. They cannot send him to the minor leagues without first having to waive him where he can possibly get claimed by another team. The thing about Rodriguez is so frustrating, and I saw this on Saturday afternoon at the game. The guy throws 100 miles an hour. That's why they like him, because he can throw it so fast. Unfortunately, he also can throw a hell of a 57-foot curveball in the dirt that's a wild pitch. And that's why they're worried about just letting him go, because they think somebody else could pick him up, he'd figure it out and become a good reliever for someone else. So right now, Davey is just kind of like trying to hide him until they can get to September.
I think he's set on seeing what Rodriguez can do for the rest of the year. But I'm telling you what, if they're in the playoffs, I don't think they're going to rely on Rodriguez.
All right, we're going to let Vincent have the last word on that. Thank you very much, Vincent. Now it's time to talk about our beloved Washington Redskins, RG3. Robert Griffin III signed to a 4-year, $23 million deal. How about that? But during the offseason, they also increased their offense chances of getting a few wideouts at Afshin.
They did. They got Pierre Garcon and Josh Morgan. Josh Morgan's a local guy.
Love that name, Garcon. Garcon.
Garcon makes you feel like you want to go eat in a fancy bistro, right?
That's right.
So they picked up a couple wide receivers to go with Santana Moss, Brandon Banks, Terrence Austin. And now what they're doing is taking Niles Paul, who was a rookie last year from Nebraska, and they're going to have him compete at the tight end position with Chris Cooley and Fred Davis.
That's right. Vincent, the pivotal point for the Washington Redskins in terms of the offense would be Santana Moss. Now, Afshin, you've mentioned on previous shows of the Nation's Capital Sports Show on our podcast that perhaps, Santana Moss or any other NFL team would best be served as a second starter, but for the Washington Redskins, he's actually going to be, he's that starter. A lot of good things are expected of him this year from the offensive standpoint of view. Do you think that he can come to bring his game plan on?
I certainly think he can. He's shown that in the past, but he has to be injury-free for one thing. What I'm wondering about is this receiver Hankerson, who got hurt later in the year. He needs to produce because he was a high draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is. He's a big guy, too. Hankerson comes out of the University of Miami. Now, Santana Moss, what I always have thought was, I think on a lot of other teams, Kevin, he's a number 2 wide receiver, and that's not taken away from Santana Moss or his ability to play. It's just that he's not a number 1 receiver. He's a great complementary receiver. If you put him in Detroit, Calvin Johnson's number 1. If you put him in Arizona, Larry Fitzgerald is number 1, so on and so forth.
Right.
So we'll see what they do.
And, we talk in terms of how Robert Griffin III is going to be the Redskins' messiah, but let's actually break this down to the basic realistics of this in terms of he hasn't even played an NFL game yet, Chris.
He hasn't. First of all, I want to say, as you guys mentioned, your beloved team. Of course, this is a team that I don't like.
Of course you don't.
Just to make that clear. But as it goes, Robert Griffin.
Traitor, Benedict Arno,
But
Turncoat.
Yeah,
Turncoat.
But as you guys
Hooligan.
mentioned, the thing about RG3, the Heisman Trophy winner coming in, the team has tried to build around him. They think he can do great things at the quarterback position. Mike Shanahan naming him the starter before he's even had a practice, obviously, and they want to go with him. I think he'll do okay as a quarterback for the Redskins. I think he's going to run a little bit more than he's letting on, because I think the Redskins still have some issues, with their offensive line, and sometimes he's going to have to get out of that pocket and run, and that might be a good thing. I think the running quarterback or a mobile quarterback doesn't have to be a runner like Mike Vick, but the mobile quarterback is a good thing, and I think Robert Griffin definitely will help the Redskins in that regard.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I think he is more of a mobile quarterback than a running quarterback. And before the show started, Chris, our director, Charles Smith, was talking about him having a cannon of an arm, and I think he does. And I think we can see that come out of him this year. But because of the offensive line, we will see him run a lot.
That's right. Well, hopefully he won't spend many times on his back like Jason Campbell did on many Sundays looking up to the sky praying. He got to know that sky pretty good. RG3, if we talk about him in terms of being a quality quarterback, are we talking in terms of Cam Newton numbers? We know that the breakout season that Cam Newton had, Vincent, when he quarterbacked.
I don't think that he's going to be quite like Cam Newton. He has that potential, but it has to do with those people that are around him. Like we mentioned, the offensive line and the receivers, and the defense has to play their part too. Remember, okay, Griffin's a winner. He come from Baylor. The Redskins aren't winners right now. They need to learn to be winners. They won 5 games, 6 games the past 2 years. Okay, it depends on a lot of other things. I think he has great potential, but this is the NFL. Everybody's good.
That's right. As Chris would say, what have you done for me lately?
That's right.
Let's talk in terms of Chris Cooley. Speaking of what have you done for me lately, I know he's been injured for the last couple of years, but this year he stands to have some excellent competition in training camp.
He does, and we're talking about Fred Davis and Niles Paul. Miles Paul was a wide receiver. Now he's going to try the tight end position. He's the smallest of the three. He's about 6'1", 220, while Cooley and Davis are, of course, 6'4" and 6'5". I think Chris Cooley, will make the team because of his versatility. He can not only block, he can not only pass, but he can also come out of the backfield and play fullback. And I think that's a big point for Mike Shanahan. He wants somebody else because I'm not sure what's going to happen to Mike Sellers now.
I would disagree with you on one point. I think Chris Cooley will make the team because he happens to be the most popular player on the team. I think if he was somebody else, I think Chris Cooley probably would have been cut with his salary and all.
So?
But I think he still can play
That's a good
part.
point.
He is the most
That's a
popular
good
player
point.
on the team. There's no doubt about it.
All right, let's shift over to the Washington Redskins defense. Brian Rakpo on our show, episode 109. There's another shameless plug of the nation's capital sports show, which can be heard on the Stitcher Radio Network at Stitcher.com. He actually said that he expects the Washington Redskins to be #1 in offense. What do you got to say about that?
Well, I don't think he'll be #1 in offense, defense, or special teams.
Yeah, I know.
But they were, number 13 at the end of last year. They've got a good linebacking core. They need some safeties. They have Doughty, Gomes, Jackson, and Brandon Merriweather. I don't know if they're the fit at safety. They got a couple of good cornerbacks. But, Kevin, they have a lot of work to do on defense. I love the linebacking core, though.
Well, the reason why they were number 13 last year, the last part of the season, was because most of the teams were resting their starters for the playoffs.
Right.
You know, for the
New York
playoffs.
Giants,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, what do you expect?
And let's not forget, too, Brian Arakpo is saying exactly what a player on any team is supposed to say. You're supposed to talk up your own team.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Vincent.
Everybody in this town is upbeat about RG3, and that's great. But remember, the Redskins, 3 playoff appearances since the '91 Super Bowl, okay? So it's going to take some time. How about some cautious optimism?
Oh, that's true, too. Let's talk about the defense real quick, Ashton. Any stalwarts that you see that may be standing out for training camp?
Well, the one stalwart is always going to be Brian Arakpo. But Brandon Merriweather and Tenard Jackson are the 2 safeties that they got via free agency, and they're the ones that are going to have to step it up if the defense has any say at all in this coming year.
And we mustn't forget about that testy veteran in London Fletcher.
Yeah, he's one of the best. Interestingly enough, they put RG3's locker right next to his, and London Fletcher is the leader of this team. There's no doubt about it. RG3 isn't. None of the wide receivers are. None of the running backs are. It's London Fletcher's team.
All right, thank you much, Afshin. I'm
Thank you,
Kevin
my friend.
Jeter. Afshin Banab, Chris Jerry, and Vincent Charles. You're listening to the Nation. Oh, listening. Oh, wow.
You're
I forget.
watching.
You're watching the nation's capital sports show, where it's most definitely on. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk, when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Olympics, DC United, and all sorts of fun stuff on the nation's capital sports show, where it's always on. We'll be right back.
At Arlington Independent Media, volunteer producers of local television working together to bring the sights, sounds, people, places, and events of your community to you. Students of all ages and backgrounds learning the art and science of media production in hands-on workshops designed to empower and enable. Community leaders, friends, and neighbors gathering to discuss the critical issues that affect us all. More than 20,000 programs in the last 30 years produced by and for the Arlington community. A rich and diverse collection of independent voices building community. At Arlington Independent Media.
Hey, welcome back to Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. I'm Kevin Judah, hanging out with Afshin Banab, Vincent Charles, and Chris Jerry. We're talking about what we enjoy, talking about the best and the most, and that is local and national sports. Here's what's happening on the local sports scene. DC United. Gotta love them, Afshin.
Yeah, I love them, but lately I don't love them as much. Right now they're 10-7-3. They lost their last 2. They've had an easy July in one sense, where they've only played 2 games, so they may have a little rust there, Chris.
Yeah, the last 2 games they've been shut out, so they're having a little bit of a problem. But MLS, also than any other sports league that we have in this country, it's a long season. It's going to go all the way from March until October, and you're going to have these ebbs and flows during the season. That's what DC United's dealing with right now.
Now, when August comes up, they're going to have 6 games. So they're going to really start to get into the flow, and all of them are going to be against Eastern Conference foes.
That's right. Well, Vincent, you got to love what Ben Olsen is doing. He's almost like a modern-day Moses, or what's that, the big guy upstairs who said, hey, I can make water, or actually water, and turn it into wine. But nonetheless, I digress.
Yes, he has. this being only his second year as the coach, he's doing a fine job. They have slipped a little. They're not as aggressive offensively as they seem to have been earlier in the year. They've also slipped in the standings. I believe they're down to 4th now, right?
They went from 1st to 4th. Yeah, that's correct. So, but they had a tough schedule in August, and they're all against the same Eastern Conference foes that they've played earlier this year. They've got Sporting KC and the New York Red Bulls coming up.
That's
Well,
right.
like in baseball, DC United in MLS this year, they've got 5 teams to make the playoffs.
Yes.
So, they're in a pretty good spot right now to make the playoffs, something they haven't made for a while. And I think they'll get better as we get a little bit later in the season.
That's
What
right.
is it about their performance against the Columbus Crew? It just seems like Columbus has their number. They can't win, especially over there in Ohio.
I don't know if they've got the number. I just, that's just the way soccer is. Sometimes you just have a 1-0 game, man, and
That's right.
that's just the way it ends. Sometimes you can be playing really good. The other team gets a fluke goal, and they win. I don't think it's anything to panic about right now. They made their bones early in May and June, and that's why they're in a position where they're in pretty good position in the MLS East.
I'm sorry, Chris, and I'm surprised, man. You didn't have me do my
Well, I was going
DC
to.
United song, man. I mean, what happened to that,
I was
man?
going
I
to.
don't mind making a fool of myself
Let's
for the
do it.
betterment of the show.
Ready?
Let's do it. Ready?
Bump.
Maestro, go.
DC United, bump, 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 bump.
You got to listen to the podcast to know what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, they made their bones earlier this year, like Chris just said, and they played some of the best teams in MLS, and they beat them soundly.
Now, recently, an honor was just recently bestowed upon Coach Ben Olsen.
Yeah, he was. He made the Hall of Tradition, where he's joined a few other DC United players. He got over 80% of the vote, and that's a vote that comes from the fans. So it's a nice honor for him, and I think he's well deserving of it. I'm a big Ben Olsen fan, and I like how he's led this team.
And even better honor, because of DC United's really good start, on Wednesday night he'll be the All-Star coach for
That's
the
right.
MLS All-Star game, All-Star team up there against Chelsea when they play in Chester, Pennsylvania.
You know, wouldn't it be nice to get Coach Ben Olsen in here? I mean, that would be pretty cool,
Well, maybe we should work on it. Maybe he's listening here on Comcast 69 or Verizon Fios 38.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Ben, we'd love to have you.
But you know what, for all the talk we're doing about what's happening on field, I think the thing that excites me most about DC United is what's getting ready to happen off field. And that's with the new owner. And
That's
the new,
right.
Potentially a new stadium
Daddy
finally coming this
Warbucks.
way.
He is the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. No?
He's a minority owner
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Philadelphia 76ers. He comes from Indonesia. His name is Eric Tohir, and he was a media magnate there. And now he has joined the DC United as one of the owners here, and they're saying that they're going to get a new stadium in DC for the soccer team, a soccer-only stadium.
Is it going to be Poplar Point?
It looks like Buzzard Point. Chris, you may be able to answer this more. It looks like it's Buzzard Point from the reports that I've seen thus far, but it could be anywhere.
Well, that's what they're talking about. But the thing is, at least we have an owner in place now who has the money, who can pay for it, because Will Chang, with all due respect to him, he didn't have the money to finance that.
And Don Garber doesn't do anything for this team. I mean, he's always, I just don't like what he does as commissioner of MLS, but that's another point.
All right, Ashton, we're going to let you have the last one on that. Let's talk about the 2012 Olympics happening in London. That's a bad...
London?
Yeah.
Cheerio, mate.
Yeah, just,
that's
you
right.
know.
Right. There's a lot of local
You're trying.
athletes.
I mean, a couple days after this broadcast, it takes effect in London. And you got to like this, because what's going to happen is there are a lot of local talent here in regards
Right.
to the participation. Mike Phelps, of course, being the bigger of the talent.
Yes.
But when you look at things on the whole, things are looking good for the USA.
They are, and there's one person in particular I want to talk about. She comes from Bethesda, Maryland. She is the youngest the youngest athlete on the U.S. team, and that is Katie Ledecky, who is going to be in the 800 meters, and she's 15 years old, and she goes to Stone Ridge. Congratulations to her, and she will be on the team. It's going to be something to see, a 15-year-old doing the 800 meters.
That's
and
right.
Swimming.
We also have Carolyn Queen of Darnestown, Maryland. She's going to be doing the canoeing and the K-Long Salam, and that's always a good thing. We have Kate Ziegler of Great Falls, Virginia,
Right.
swimming in the 800 free. So when you look at this, man, pound for pound, we have a lot of folks from this area that will be participating in London. You got to like what you see.
And Katie Ziegler went to Bishop O'Connell High School right here in Arlington.
And
She
that's
finished
why I mentioned
second.
her.
Right down the
That's
road.
right. She finished second to Katie Ledecky in the 800 qualifying. So they'll both make it. Terrence Jennings, someone else, a Taekwondo aficionado, if you will, attended T.C. Williams High School in Alexandria. He's now 25 years old, but he has made the Olympics, and he's probably not the favorite. Of course, there's a couple, one from Iran, one from Spain, who are the favorites. But they say he has a chance to upset
And
a
let's
couple of those
let's
guys.
show DC some love too. We got David Banks of Washington D.C. in rowing. I mean, that's
Right.
always a good thing.
Right.
Representing D.C.
United.
Bump, bump.
But good luck to all of them, and not only them, but really good luck to all of the athletes from all over the world who participate, who will be in London. And it's not just about our athletes, it's about everybody who participates. It's supposed to be a goodwill feeling.
The pomp and the pageantry of the 2012 Olympics, it takes place in the next couple of days. So by the time that you view the show here, it will be on. And the great thing about it, here's an interesting fact. Ralph Lauren, a lot of the players, or all of the U.S. players will be wearing that his suits, so to speak,
yes,
the
they will.
Olympic garb.
Yeah, his nice Chinese-made
That's right.
Yeah.
Olympic garb.
Marketing,
With
marketing,
berets.
right?
With berets.
All right, here's something interesting about the Olympics, something that came upon in the last couple of days. Should professional athletes be allowed to participate in the Olympics? Because we had a recent injury to an NBA player. And so now you take this thing full circle. You know, so we'll start with Vincent on this one. Get your thoughts on it, my man.
Well, like we were talking about off mic, years ago there were other countries, specifically Russia, China, people like that, who were per se using their pro athletes in the competition. So they leveled the playing field. And when I think about it, that's all fair. And when you look at the Olympic athletes, how could you call them amateur when they've been doing this all their lives?
That's a good
Aren't
point
they
there.
professionals?
That's a good point, Chris.
Well, I don't have a problem with pros in the Olympics. I think what I do like, or what I'm hearing, is the NBA. This may be the last Olympics that the NBA players, as we know it, will be in there. They may follow the soccer model, and what soccer does is it's basically an under 23, except for 3 exceptions. And I think that's where the NBA possibly is going to go, under 23, and maybe let a couple of professionals play with them.
Let me ask you this, Afshin. Someone may look at this and say, how unpatriotic of the NBA to do something like that. I'm
True,
just saying.
it can be, especially if you do like professionals in the Olympics. I don't really have I don't know. I'm always on the fence about it. There's one part of me that says no, professionals should not be in the Olympics. Why? Because they have their own venue anyway, outside of the Olympics, in their own country. They are professionals, they're getting paid to do what they do at home. So in that sense, I say no. But if everybody wants to do it and everyone agrees to it, I have no problem with it.
Well, let me say, I'm not on the fence about it, and I think that the time has come for the players who go over there to get paid. They want to keep playing that patriotism thing on these guys. Meanwhile, somebody somewhere is getting paid in the United States Olympic Committee, and I think the players, all of them, should get some of that money.
Yeah, if they go as professionals, they should get the money.
So, Avsheen, are you saying by the professionals being allowed to participate, this is keeping other people out?
It could very well be. I don't know. We won't know that because professionals are in it. But chances are it does keep them out. Before the professional basketball players went, who went to the Olympics?
Collegiate basketball players.
Collegiate basketball players. So now you have Anthony Davis, but before 92 and 88, 84, and 82, in the summers you had a whole lot of other college basketball players that went, and they were amateurs.
Well, how about this? How about alternating every 4 years where you have basketball being played, collegiate players go, and then the next 4 years, NBA players go. Or you break it down, you have half and half. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm thinking outside of the box, but I'm looking at Mr. Jerry, and he's giving me this look. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah,
Come on, man.
I'm not
feeling it? You ain't feeling the
outside
love,
box.
man? You ain't
I
feeling
say
it?
no. I like, again, the under 23 rule, and I think, I just think that the Olympics being what they are, I just think that, for professionals, team sports specifically, that those guys probably should kind of cut back and let the younger
You like
players
the
play.
under 23 rule even if they are professionals, as long as they're under 23.
If they're under 23, that's good.
All right, so we're going to let the combination of Chris and Afshin have the last word on this. For this week's edition of the Nation's Capital Sports Show, in which we hope there will be many more on Arlington Independent Media. And I got to grab my notes here because this has been really fun. Make sure you check us out on Comcast 69 and Verizon 38. It's been a blast. And also, our condolences and hearts go out to that tragic incident in Aurora, Colorado. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the many families out there. This is the Nation's Capital Sports Show. I'm Kevin Jeter, along with Vincent Charles, Chris Jerry, and Afshin Banab. Have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye.